Okay, so we've just had a discussion about good growth by design with local authorities and developers. What do you think the key messages were coming from their perspective as how they're trying to implement good growth by design?
Well, I think the Mayor's agenda about good design is, getting more traction. Certainly, the applications that we see at City Hall are reflecting that. The key thing is the recognition of the amount of affordable housing that we need to see in developments being brought forward, and the fast track, the availability of getting a swifter approval if you're delivering 35% affordable housing. It's achieved a great deal of certainty, I think, within the sector, and hopefully that we'll see that translate into faster delivery of housing generally, but particularly affordable housing. And that's just one example, I think.
Yeah, that was a challenge. I think we heard the time aspect of how we can quicken up the processes for delivery, but also the process of design itself. And you mentioned the public practice initiative to try and get more people into local authorities. How is that going so far?
Well, I absolutely recognise, and the Mayor recognises, that the London plan is a huge shift in approach from how London's been planned previously. And the emphasis on good design, and that's not just about aesthetics, it's about problem solving and avoiding problems in developments. That is putting an increasing burden, will put an ever-increasing burden on local authorities, because it's not just about planning by numbers. And so that will necessitate a shift in the way they're approaching applications and the skills perhaps that they need in local authorities. So one of our initiatives is called Public Practice that we've set up with the Local Government Association, and that's about putting built environment professionals from a whole range of disciplines into
not just design.
Not just design, but obviously architects, but the whole range of professions, and finding new and emerging talent, but also experienced talent who perhaps wants to take a year or two out of their higher paid, long-standing job, and put something into local authorities for a year or two. So it's a bit like kind of teach first for planning and a built environment. But as I say, not just for people at the beginning of their careers, to be able to go into local authorities and help kind of establish perhaps some new approaches, new ways of thinking, and just helping them implement the Mayor's agenda of good growth.
So as well as informing a new way of working internally, I guess there's also the need to inform a new way of working externally, so to the public, to Londoners. And are there specific ideas you have with that on how you might encourage people to embrace the sort of change that we need in the city?
Well, the Mayor, including through the London plan, is very clear about how going forward development and growth has to be done with communities and to benefit communities. And certainly, an obvious example of that is about estate regeneration, and the fact that the Mayor is insisting that ballots have to take place on estates if they're to receive any mayoral funding for regeneration. But more widely, it's crucial that we engage with communities, help boroughs engage with their communities, and explain why we need the growth that we need in London to help cater for the ever-expanding population. Will be more than 10 million by 2041, and also explain how we can accommodate the growth in a way that isn't threatening or unsettling. The plan goes into some detail, but we're bringing a lot more forward about how new design typologies could deliver the kind of density that we need in London without being a 30-storey tower block in the middle of a 2-storey residential road, which is absolutely not what we want to see. But unfortunately, density in outer London, that's how sometimes it's presented. So there is a lot of work that we have to do at City Hall, but also the boroughs have to do. They need to understand what it is we are asking for. It's the 3-storey mansion block instead of a site being used to deliver a series of detached houses with parking for 3 or 4 cars out of the front. Instead, we could put a mansion block on there and treble the density without going above the height of the roof line of the existing typologies around that. And say at a stroke, you've trebled the density without at all threatening the kind of rhythm and massing of a locality. Obviously, where you are on top of good transport links, we would expect a bit greater density and some more height, and not wasting land for car parking, and not wasting value within a site building an expensive underground car park, when actually, if it's on top of good transport links, it should be car free, and the improved viability as a result of not building that expensive car park can go towards something far more socially useful, like affordable housing.
And just on that, some of the things you have mentioned we need to change take quite a long time. So what are the other celebratory things or the small changes that you think we can start to interweave as people are waiting for the big things to happen?
Well, things like the design review panel, and the quality review charter that we've introduced will, encourage a more sort of design-centric approach to things. Certainly, anything that the mayor will be investing in will go through design review. The charter, we're hoping, will introduce a greater uniformity of design review across London, and also will encourage all places across London to introduce panels if they don't already have one. So that's a kind of an example of perhaps small nudges and interventions that we're trying to make to help kind of turn the ship. But I mean, the overall bigger picture, I think, is what we want to see London as respecting its different varied communities and its different types of place across London, developing London as a sort of a polycentric city, definitely not as one where a central activity zone that has all the jobs and everywhere is a dormitory that commutes in. We'll be needing Crossrails 3, 4 and 5 to be able to make that kind of function, and it will be a very unhealthy city. We need to develop out each locality in the kind of it's kind of within its own natural rhythm, but respecting the need that we do need greater density across London generally to cope with its growing population.
Great. And final question, just on being here at MIPIM, are there other cities across the UK that you're engaging with or having interesting conversations just about these sorts of issues?
Yeah, I mean, certainly more locally, we're very much engaged with the local authorities within the wider southeast. We're trying to identify, common themes where we can kind of join forces. The obvious thing is that we both need, both London and the wider southeast, needs investment in infrastructure, particularly transport infrastructure, that will help unlock a lot of these housing sites. But we are looking more, further afield, Birmingham, for example, and up the HS2 corridor, to look for what opportunities that there could be and links that we could make for, where we can find common ground and common benefit.